What's going on today? We're going to be doing a little quick history lesson. So the title is The Grandfather of Divorce, Henry VIII. So a lot of people, get married. I think the divorce rate right now in America is 70%. It's basically uh, people are divorcing. Like, I mean, you could go to. I think it's like in Vegas. You got weddings, drive-through weddings, and then also, I guess they have drive-through divorces. Actually, to be honest, you could get a divorce online. You don't even have to leave your house now. That's how easy it is to get a divorce today. You just basically file. You can even file your own divorce yourself. You don't even need an attorney. Uh, if you probably make less than $50,000 a year and you don't really have that much assets, you could probably most likely file divorce yourself. You don't even need an attorney to file divorce. So I say all of this to say a lot of people, it never really dawned on them. Okay, it's easy to get divorced now. A lot of the complaints about how easy it is to get divorced, why even get married if it's so easy to get divorced. But fast forward or you rewind 600 years ago, give or take, it wasn't so easy to get a divorce. Absolutely, it was, I would even say, impossible to get a divorce. With your head still being attached to your body. Let's just say it like that, or to be, let's just say, tortured to death. That was how hard it was to get a divorce during Henry VIII's time. Okay, that was that was how hard it was. You would basically be castrated from society. You would be just basically thrown in a dungeon or in a ditch somewhere for your body parts to be feasted by wild dogs. Most likely that will be your fate if you tried to file divorce back in 1500s, basically 16th century. So today we're going to talk about why that is, who this man Henry VIII is, and why is this guy so important. Well, Henry VIII is basically the king of England. His time of reign was basically during the House of Tudors, which pretty much was 1509 to 1547. Okay. He was preceded by his father, Henry VII. Basically, Henry VIII was pretty typical of a king. He was well liked by his peers. He was a king's king, you should say. He was loved by the ladies. He was revered by men. He was it's actually two types of kings, right? So you have kings during war. They would basically stay in the castle, and they would let basically the war go on. If the war did not fare well, they would stay in their castle and fight to the death outside of their castle, basically, in the last ditch effort for them to survive. And then you also had what I would call the warrior king. The warrior king is pretty typical, going out to battle, fighting with your basically kingdom. Okay, uh, Henry VIII was that type. He was the warrior king that would go out to fight with his kingdom. Okay, so he does have a lot of history as far as what he's done. He's basically have conquested a lot of what you will call modern France. They warred with France during that time. He actually won quite a few victories with basically his kingdom and their ongoing war with France. So he is one of those kings that basically, because of the victories, because of the booty that was taken from those victories, land, territory, he was pretty much revered by his kingdom. Now, he's also what you would say more of an Epicurean when it comes to women. He was basically a typical king in a sense where he liked to have sex as much as possible. That kind of, you could kind of say that partially that's the reason why he actually wanted to get divorced from his first wife, but that doesn't all tell the story. It's just not because he wanted to have multiple women. I think that does have something to do with it. What was going on during the time was basically Henry VIII, was married to Catherine of Aragon. She was basically Catholic, devout Catholic. Basically, her mother is Queen Mary. She was from basically Spain. So a lot of what went on in Europe, in order to quell some of the tension, stop some of the warring, they would trade basically wives. They would, you know, offer a princess to a king, and then she would, in turn become queen in order to have some type of bond, some type of alliance. That's what they did. Typically before that, it was just basically a lot of warring, a lot of bloodshed, even worse than that. In basically, I would say pre-modern times, they found a way. Okay, well, if we just basically offer up different women from different kingdoms, we'll have some alliances, we'll have some type of bond, so we won't war with each other at least as much. If as long as you take my daughter and you take care of her, and so on and so forth. So that was what was done with his first wife, Catherine. Catherine of Aragon. Let me put this in the make a banner of this here. So this was his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Aragon. So Catherine of Aragon, let's pull her up. Let's talk about Catherine of Aragon. Now, another thing I have to basically talk about is that let me. I got a lot of humidity in my office, so my camera, excuse my camera here, it's getting a little foggy. Let me see here. Turn this off real quick. There we go. All right. So yeah, so Catherine of Aragon, she's from Spain. She's basically offered to Henry VIII as his first bride. Okay, just in case you didn't know history, Catherine of Aragon was basically someone that is pivotal because Catherine of Aragon is actually, so if Henry VIII is the grandfather of divorce, Catherine of Aragon is the grandmother of divorce. So basically, uh, Catherine of Aragon was a devout Catholic. You know, basically during that time, mostly everyone was Catholic. Roman Catholic Church had a stronghold on Europe. They absolutely had a stronghold on Europe at that time, and Catherine of Aragon was from Spain, and Spain is very, very close to Italy. It's on the pathway of Rome, and Spain is still to this day has a very strong Catholic tradition. Okay, very, very, much a long history with Roman Catholicism. So he marries Catherine of Aragon. She's a very holy queen. Okay, she is very, very devout in her faith. They, basically, it was just an arranged marriage. Uh, After that arrangement, they had children. Catherine had basically, she had basically birthed. Let's see how many children she had. I'll look this up here. How many children did she have? Let's see here. Let's look this up here. So the contention was with Catherine, she couldn't produce any sons. Okay. She could not produce any heirs to his throne, Henry VIII's throne. That was the contention. So one of her daughters was Mary of England, Mary the First. Okay, and pretty much that was it. She didn't produce any more children after that. She basically had a son that was died prematurely. She had a stillbirth, and she had a lot of problems conceiving children. For whatever reason, at that time, she had a very, very hard time conceiving children. During that time, a lot of people had problems, all kind of health problems. It was no modern plumbing, modern heating. It was no modern sewage system that we enjoy today. Basically, a lot of people were basically just coming out of living basically outside to these castles, and in the early part of Europe they had houses that was made out of straw for roofs. Very similar to kind of what you would see in Africa, a straw roof, or a roof made of basically cowhide or something like that. So they were very, very prehistoric, as is most people during that time, as far as how they bathe, how they clean themselves, how they disinfect themselves. It was very, very, uh, let's just say, dirty and filthy during that time. It was a lot of infections were commonplace. You got to understand, Europe was coming out of the Black Death. Okay, they had something called the Black Death that wiped out a third of Europe. Okay, that basically led to a lot of people dying, a lot of people just basically wasting away. And that is what you're about 100 years or so, 150 years away from Black Death. They're still trying to recover from that. And then you had all kind of things that you have now that would kill you during that time: flu, typhoid, rubella, measles. All of that stuff would just absolutely destroy you during that time, because it was little to no medical prevention during that time. Okay, that's where you go into the spice wars and stuff like that, where they found out, Europe found out, that these spices that we call herbs and spices today, okay, Popeyes and all that, but the thing is these spices, these herbs, actually help people, resolve issues. It helps people, cure certain diseases. Modern medicine during that time was just, not really that advanced during that time. So being a barren woman was very, very common during that time. Okay. Now there are some women that had better, chances of conceiving, more fertile, but Catherine of Aragon was not that woman. This was primarily the reason why he wanted to get divorced. It wasn't the only reason. Obviously, like most kings at the time, he was able to sleep with whoever he wanted to sleep with. She knew about that, and it was quite common at the time. And she still, basically tried to produce him an heir. She was unsuccessful. As a king, he has to get an heir no matter what. And primarily an heir from his wife. Okay. During this time, Catherine of Aragon is obviously his wife. She's not able to get him an heir. He's probably thinking, who knows? Okay, the Spaniards pulled one off on me. They gave me this barren queen. They knew this queen is barren. This is probably a bad deal. I want out of this. So, what did he do? He basically reached out to some of his emissaries, some of the people in his kingdom that will probably be of the clergy, and as well as his emissaries, to proposition the Catholic Church. Okay, during that time, that would be Pope Clement VII, to basically annul his marriage. Okay, there was no such thing as divorce It was annulment. Most people were Catholic during this time. Okay, we're talking the early 1500s. That was pretty much what most people were. They were Catholic and they were devout Catholics. And if you were not a devout Catholic, you were considered a heretic. You would be considered an outcast, and it would be very, very difficult for you to survive during that time. Okay, divorce again was outlawed during that time. Absolutely outlawed. The only option was annulment. So King Henry VIII sent his emissaries out to conquest to talk to Pope Clement the Seventh. Pope Clement the Seventh basically did something that really, really angered Henry VIII, and that was basically, obviously, he denied his annulment. He said, "No way. You got to understand, this woman was very, very close to the Catholic Church. She was very close to all of the cardinals, all of the bishops. She knew them very well. She probably wrote letters to them and was in constant contact with people of the Catholic Church that had direct line to communications with the Pope. At that time, Pope Clement the Seventh, he knew her very, very well. He did not honor that annulment. He knew that would be embarrassing to Spain. That would be, embarrassing to the Catholic Church at that time. He said, absolutely not. So what Henry VIII did was something that was left field, and it put England at the time, which Henry VIII is under dominion of Britain, all of the United Kingdom, and also Ireland. Okay, now I'm gonna come bring Ireland back later in this, because this is where it gets bloody. Okay, so he's angered. Pope Clement says, no, you cannot divorce this woman. You cannot get an annulment. Make your bed and lay in it. Okay, do the best you can. She's getting older. Okay, you got to understand, during this time, people didn't live that long. I just mentioned whatever I could mention. It's worse than that. Whatever I just mentioned with the bulls and the Black Death, and not having sewage systems, not having popular basically sanitation, not having any type of ways to disinfect. People were dying early. You were considered elder. People talk about, you're an old dude or whatever. You were an old dude in your early 30s during that time. Because if you live past 35, people would just look at you like you're a wise man. Like, how did you do that? You live past 35, where you being killed is very, very easy by somebody else, because you got to understand, it was about might. Might was right. It was nobody else to avenge your death. I mean, it was, but you got to understand, it was no cameras. You couldn't call the police. Okay, it's no police. You had to be able to be a sword fighter. You had to be an archer, good with knives, weaponry, or someone would take your life easily during that time. And also, if other people did not kill you, nature itself was trying to destroy you, as well as diseases was trying to destroy you. So death was very, very early for most people during that time. If you live past 35, it was just almost a miracle. Okay. So you got to understand, this woman, she had one child, married the first, no sons after that, no children after that, stillborn after stillborn, uh, unsuccessful pregnancy after unsuccessful pregnancy. She's in her late 20s, going to her 30s. She's outside of what they knew now. You got to understand also, they didn't really know that much about modern science. They were very prehistoric as far as understanding science, understanding in their mindset, your childbearing years is very early, and then after 20s, or definitely your 20s, it's almost like you're done with having children. You can have a miracle baby in your 30s if you're still alive. That's possible, but it's basically like you're considered barren after so many years. Probably most likely by your late 20s, you're considered barren. You already had problems having children. It's no hope for any heir after the 20s and 30s. It's not possible, other than a miracle during that time. So again, he conquested, with his emissaries, to go to Pope Clement. He denied that divorce. He did not grant any annulment. So what Henry VIII did was what set history to this day, set modern divorce to this day. He said, you know what? Fuck the Catholic Church. I'm going to separate. I'm going to make my own church. Why do we have to go, worship these bloats when we can just create our own church? We can have our own uh, type of Roman Catholicism within UK. And that's what he did. He just basically said, fuck y'all. I'm going to create a church for my own, in my own kingdom. And it was like, it just set ablaze. Could you imagine, when Pope Clement heard about that, and he just basically, probably just whatever his little giblet or whatever he was drinking, he just probably threw his drink at the fire. Like, what? Like, just, he was just absolutely livid. Because one, you got to understand, they probably didn't think he was going to do anything like that. No one challenged the Pope. Okay, that's another thing that if you challenge the Catholic Church, it was off with your entire body. You got to understand, though, during this time, basically, basically Britain was very, very strong under Henry VIII. Okay, they did have some alliances, but basically, that was not like he could just go and send. He tried to send people after Henry VIII, but it wasn't like he could just storm through there and just take his head. So this is Henry VIII, conqueror of northern France. He basically took, he went to France and then their backyard and won. Okay, very few kingdoms at that time could do that. Okay, this is what Henry VIII did at that time. He went to war with the Kingdom of France, and actually won and lived to tell about it, and also conquered that those territories. So he wasn't a weak king as far as you could just come and storm through or anything like that. So he had to eat that circumstance, and also he had to deal with it because he didn't just take it on the chin. The Catholics, uh, you know, had to deal with that later, but we're gonna get to that. But yeah, once he created his own church, okay, which would be what is known as the Church of England, he basically divorced his wife himself. Okay, okay, he literally divorced his wife. Okay, now once he divorced his wife, he chose another wife, and that wife is Anne Boleyn. Okay, so now here's the thing. You gotta understand what was going on at this time. Okay. Um, Henry VIII, we say a lot about him being you know, with these women, and also him having problems with his wife, Catherine of Aragon. Before I move on to Anne Boleyn, his second wife, you got to understand Henry VIII also wasn't healthy. Okay. It wasn't like Catherine of Aragon was basically, um, it was just her, it wasn't him at all. He was just this healthy specimen of a king during that time. You got to understand, Henry VIII was absolutely screwing. Okay, you gotta understand, right? Okay, put this in perspective, right? I'm not mentioning what kind of day I had, but I had a very very bad day. Um, I'll just say this: I lost my wallet and my cell phone all in one day. I found my phone, thank God, but I have not yet to find my wallet. Now, that being said, one thing I did see today, and it reminded me of this topic that I'm discussing. I saw what basically is in it was just she got on, I think, basically either, yeah, she got on in Chicago. I saw a Chicago dime. Okay, now here's the thing. Here's what's special about this. Okay, in the Midwest, in Chicago, you don't really see that many dimes. Okay, in California, maybe it's more Miami, whatever. Okay, in Chicago, I rarely see dimes. I rarely see eights, sevens, whatever. I saw this fucking tall, young, look like a model. I mean, I'm not talking about an Instagram model. I'm talking about kind of Vogue type. Like she could, if she went to modeling school, she could be in Vogue easy. Okay. Like that's what I saw. And I was like, what the fuck? That was what I was thinking in my head. It was like seeing somebody and you can't take your eyes off them. Like you trying to not look at them, but you looking at them. And then it's like, okay, so just imagine this, right? You're the king of, you know, wherever. You the king of basically England at that time. you, any woman is trying to already, if she's not already desiring or dreaming of being with the king, okay, even if she did it, all you have to do is send one of your top knights to go talk to her, and requisition her to be seen by the king. That's all it takes. Okay, you gotta understand. Okay, kings had absolute power back then. All he had to do was say, "Hey, come here, come hither," and she would have came, and came in more ways than one. Okay, so the thing is that you gotta understand having that power. Okay, it's not some celebrity stuff where it's like, oh yeah, look, celebrities, have women yelling and all that. I mean, you got the entire kingdom, okay, at your becking call. You can have any woman. You can have a woman, most likely, even if she's married. You know what's going on, Alonzo Hall? What's up? What's up? But no disrespect to Alonzo, but Alonzo is married. A king during that time could be like, Alonzo, basically, he wouldn't even say nothing to Alonzo. He would just be like, basically, while your wife is out and about, she's went to go see the king. And then the king and the woman is going to get pregnant, and the husband probably would think that that's his actual child. Probably you would even say it wouldn't even be a thing where the husband didn't know. The husband probably would know, because you having a king's baby is a big deal. Okay, even if someone else is married, like, I mean, that's how powerful that was, right? So it's crazy, it's mind-blowing, right? This thing, you're married and someone has the right to your wife. I mean, that's how much power that was, back then. You know, and the thing is that how much sex are you possibly having with that power? Again, no disinfectants, no modern medicine, okay, no modern sewage, no modern plumbing, absolutely tons of diseases, okay, absolutely very easy to die from these diseases because very little to no cures during this time. And Henry VIII was a diseased king. He had what would be common as a STD or a STI during that time from all of the googlobs of sex that he was having. Okay, all of the orgies and festivals and feasts, they involve sex. And also here's another thing that I almost forgot. Henry VIII was a glutton. Okay, he liked to eat, like, what would be known as, he would eat two chickens at one time. He would eat two chickens. He would eat some duck. He would have some potatoes. He would have some grapes. Different layers of fruit. All kind of wine. Then loaves and loaves of bread. He would absolutely glutton himself to the point where he was just fat, and so he was not really healthy. So it was like, basically, to let's just say, even if Catherine of Aragon was healthy, her actual husband, which was the King Henry VIII, was not healthy. So imagine you being a sickly king and you're blaming your wife for being barren. It could be you. It could be your ass. That's the one that's impotent, or have some very diseased seed. If you're diseased, very commonly, your seed or your sperm is also diseased at that time. And I mean, you can recover from it with modern medicine, but you can in modern cures and whatever, but you couldn't do that back then. It was very rare. I'm not going to say you couldn't do it, but it was very difficult to do back then. Okay. You're talking about the early 1500s. So, that being said, him having all of these women at his beck and call, absolutely enjoying these women all throughout the day, night, weeks, months, years. He's getting, in sexual infections. He's passing on sexual infections as well. He's trying to have children all the while having these sexual transmitted infections. Okay, that's basically having him have a hard time to produce. He's passing on his sexual transmissions to his wife, Catherine of Aragon. They're struggling to have children. It's possible you can have children even if both parties are sexually infected. I mean, I'm sure they had, different doctors and nurses that had different tonics and cures and stuff that they were working with them, but very difficult, very difficult. So I just had to put that into perspective before I moved on to Anne Boleyn. Okay, now again, he had to basically create a whole new religion in order for him to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, or Aragon, actually. Okay. And he later, basically found Anne Boleyn. Okay. Now, so we moved on to wife number 2. Okay, Anne Boleyn. Okay, all right. Okay, and then also keep in mind that they don't play the actual portrayals of history on TV. They're starting to do that because they're under pressure. Basically, I'm lighting a fire. I'm lighting a fire in their ass. Other people are lighting a fire in their ass to tell the history, the true history of Europe. They have this portrayal of Europe as this all white, basically continent, and it's not true. It's really, to be honest, it's never been true. Honestly, it's never been. But in order to propagate or propagandize white nationalism, white fragility, you could even say to program people as far as to believe into this white supremacist narrative that things were not the way they are. They basically, I call it whitewashing. It's not I call it, but it's called whitewashing. They whitewash history in order to fit a narrative of basically lies of European history in order to have people continue to be racist and bigoted towards other people because they have this false bravado of history being all white in Europe. It was not true. Very much a lot of portraits you will see a very tan type of look towards different historical figures, primarily being people that have a royal bloodline or in the different parts of European monarchies. And what you find out is they're just basically recreating these portraits to whitewash history in order to paint a narrative of these people were so white and everybody was white. And then also with modern film, they never have black people in the film of old movies from basically history, when they talk about during the period of the Renaissance and even before that. They might, because of social pressures, have one or two people that's black, but it was like basically the equivalent of, you gotta just look at the map of Europe, look at the map of Africa. You gotta understand that it's very, very close. A lot of these kingdoms had black people in them, and they were part of society, from the lowly people, which would be serfs and peasants, to people in higher nobility, as well as kings, queens, princes, and princess, and so on and so forth. But they don't paint that narrative. You have to research yourself. There's tons of books. There's even tons of art, figurines, coins that show the actual history that is not whitewashed. So I just have to put that addendum so you can understand some of these people that I'm talking about very much had black blood in their DNA. Also, you had a lot of black people that were there from Africa, that they were, desired. They very much wanted to sleep with these, dark people from Africa during that time. Just no different than they still want to do so to this day. And a lot of people also have a lot of black DNA, or European DNA, because you gotta understand, this man Henry VIII, he fathered quite a few children that they don't disclose. A lot of those kings in Europe, they were requesting certain types of women because they wanted to actually sleep with them, because they were very exotic. They were very desired. Okay. So a lot of black people in America have European blood from actually Europe, because the combination of the slave masters in during the slave trade, and even basically uh, people going back to Africa from Europe. So it's just a kind of a double-edged prong that people don't really talk about. So what's crazy to me is how they pepper black people, and is if black people aren't the most populous on Earth. I mean, Africa is only 57 countries. It's very, very weird, and I'm not gonna lie, it really helped me understand how to deal with a lot of things when it comes to racism. A lot of people are just not educated on the truth of actually what went on in Europe. It kind of it it kind of is like funny, because you know you literally can say we was kings even in Europe. It's like, and when you realize, when they find out we was kings in Europe, it's like, they, you know what I'm saying, they're intrigued. They're very, very much intrigued. They're like, oh, this dude knows his shit. because they know, a lot of them know, they're not dumb. Okay, they trust me. You know, you got white folks that went to Oxford, went to Yale, Princeton, very well educated. They know. They might not like to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, that's why when you turn on Netflix, basically, they showing Queen Charlotte. Even in Germany, they have black royalty in Germany. Okay, they actually, you know, needed someone to marry, uh, basically King George, and they chose basically a half German, half African, which was Queen Charlotte. And you know, basically, Queen Charlotte is related to who? She's related to Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria is basically the grandmother, great grandmother of Queen Elizabeth II. So I mean, that's why that whole Meghan Markle, you know, Prince Harry thing, is a big deal because see, here's the thing: during that time, they don't mention also Africa was really really strong, and they needed to get African warriors to basically fight in Europe and also keep Africa off their fucking hide. You had the Moors that was in Spain, France, Portugal for almost over 700 years, which was close to 1,000 years, and they were basically holding strong. So that there, I don't even have to really say anymore. Right there, literally more. I don't have to say any more. I mean, it's just pretty much you could just start it in right there. But I could go further because it goes before that. They had to trade. You got to understand. They needed certain things that came out of Africa. They needed food. They needed, you know, different medicines and different herbs, different types of exotic foods. You know, I could go on and on. So it's a very much a well-known whitewashing of history. Okay, very very whitewashing in history. You know, basically go. That's one of the secrets of Victoria's Secret. That's one of them. That's one of them. But Anne Boylan, who is this lady? Okay, I'm in the historic royal palaces page. Um, you know, basically Anne Boleyn is the first um basically wife after divorce. Okay. Anne Boleyn is the first post uh woman that's married a divorcee, okay, or divorcee, whatever. She's the first wife of a man that was married. Okay. Now, Anne Boleyn's fate is very, very bleak. To kind of move things along, Anne Boleyn, basically, you got to understand, you got to go back to what problems that Henry VIII had as far as his health. Okay. He married her. She did produce a child. She produced basically Elizabeth. Okay. Elizabeth the First. She produced, that was her offspring. Okay. Elizabeth the First. Now you got to understand this man, Henry VIII, he's went through hell and high water to get a divorce from the Pope Clement the Seventh. He done basically ignited a possible war. Got to understand his bishops and his clergy. were like, no, don't do this. You know, basically the Roman Catholic Church was very, very strong during that time. They had a stronghold on Europe. I'm sure his clergyman was whispering in his ear, do not do that. Absolutely, he had some problems with his clergy because you got to understand, his clergy was basically uh, Roman Catholics. Okay. So they absolutely did not want to defy the Pope. So, absolutely not. So, what they did was they told him, don't do this. And he did it. He went through all kinds of risks, divorcing his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Then, after that, all of that risk, all of the pain and anguish of going back and forth with the Pope, and then finally creating his own church, his own religion, which is the Anglican Church, basically the Church of England. His firstborn is a girl. Is a girl. He's like, God, am I cursed? What the, it's like, it's like, man, it's like, what I'm saying, like me, like I ain't gonna lie, my first daughter, my first child was a daughter, and I was happy and I was thrilled because all you want is just a healthy child. But obviously, of course, you want a boy, somebody to play catch, somebody to go to the game with, somebody to play basketball with, whatever, tackle football. I mean, all of the things. It's like your little homie, right? Obviously, that's what you want. You want a son. You want somebody to that you could name. What's going on? Salute, salute. You want that. That's what you want. And if you're the king, oh man, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. You definitely want a heir to your throne. You want a king. You want a prince. Okay? That's what you want. So you just gotta imagine this man is outside, or no, he's inside his wife, that he basically, a lot of people were angered as well. You gotta understand, during this time, a lot of people were angered. Okay. They were very much angered. You did what? What did you do? And they probably was calling him every name of the book. I mean, obviously, if they really, really pressed, it was off with their head. Okay. The king at that time, a lot of the European monarchies, they had absolute authority. They weren't, considered. I hear people talking about they're just figureheads now. I do not trust that. I don't trust that with a spare on a highway that they just figureheads. Okay, but no, they were putting people's heads on figures back then. So yeah, a lot of people at that time did not like the fact that the king separated from the Catholic Church and he started his own little band or his own church. It was like utterly pissed about that. You got to understand, people are very religious. Religion at that time was basically law. Like, it was like, you could say it was a theocracy during that time. Being Catholic was just the only choice. You would have to probably, if you were something else, you'd have to basically be study your religion in private or whatever. Have your own little band or whatever, and that was it. I mean, you got to understand, this was basically right after the time that they kicked the Moors out of Europe. They sent them back to Africa, and then that led to wars and led to the modern or the basically slave trade. Okay. So all of these things are happening right now as we speak at this time. And once they kick the Moors out, they kicked the Jews out with them, because during that time the Muslims were working with the Jews because their faith is very, very similar. The Jews pray 3 times, the Muslims pray 5 times. They can both eat the same food. Even to be honest, um, you could marry as a Muslim, you could marry a Jewish woman, and you know, because you can eat the same food. Theirs is called kosher. The Muslim food is called halal. So they were working together, and they basically were conquering uh, France, parts of France, Spain, Portugal. They had a very strong influence all over Europe at that time. Basically, Queen Elizabeth at that time, basically worked with her members of her court, and they got the weekend Moors out of Spain. And basically the Jews were also kicked out. They were working with the Muslims. They knew that. They kicked them out. So if anybody else had anything other than a faith that was Catholic, was just basically considered pretty much an outcast, someone that was frowned upon. If you were considered someone that did not like the Catholic Church, you were considered a heretic. Your very livelihood was in jeopardy during that time. So this man risked all of that by basically putting a split right between the Catholic Church, and just so he could basically get divorced primarily. And I'm sure it was other reasons as well. I'm sure he wanted to, like the idea of, England having their own faith, their own traditions, and their own church. They still have that to this day. Okay. You got King, basically King Charles. His coronation is in that same Church of England. Okay, that Henry VIII created. Okay, obviously we know about his divorce with Princess Diana. That hey, all of the stuff that happened with that. Now, that being said, he went through all of that, and then he marries his wife Anne Boleyn, his second wife, and then she has a girl. Not knowing what happened, okay? I mean, obviously, what was going to happen, he didn't know his fate. He didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know Queen Elizabeth was going to be one of the greatest queens that actually ruled Britain, but he wanted a son. That was the tradition. Sons ruled, they were kings, okay? That was what he wanted. He wanted an heir to his throne. She births a girl. He his fucking heart drops to his stomach. Gotta understand, you know, he went through all of that because his first wife did not deliver a son, and all of the problems and headaches of that, banishing his wife, basically exiling her, and now he just basically marries his second wife and has a daughter. Ain't the irony? I know he's probably thinking he's cursed. His clergy is probably talking behind his back about how he's probably most likely cursed because he couldn't produce a son, even if he separated from the church, the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, you just got to understand, man. That is just some irony. That's some bad luck. Like today, I'm gonna be honest. I can't never recall a day where I lost both my phone and my wallet. And I don't think I got pickpocketed. I just left my phone on a seat in the train. I got an old phone or whatever. I mean, some, the train conductor or whatever, the man that worked on the train just gave me my phone. I mean, I've obviously had worse days than me losing my phone and my wallet in the same day. But you gotta understand that's crazy, right? But it's like, all right, this dude, you know, he went through a lot, and it's like, he just trying to see any way he can try to get out of his marriage, and he basically put his whole kingdom and his crown in jeopardy by separating from the Catholic Church to get divorced. Same thing happens to his first wife. He has a daughter that turns out to be one of the greatest queens that probably walked the earth, but he didn't know that. He didn't know. He was just thinking, oh, I just, typically I just need a prince so they can take my throne when I'm, dead and gone. That's what he wanted. So first daughter, he's happy. It's a daughter, it's healthy. They go through all of the rites of passage and everything. She's named Elizabeth. Okay. Uh then it does not stop there. Okay. After, having a daughter, she's probably, sucking him off, licking his balls, his warty nutsack. Probably his nutsack probably got boils and warts and shit on it, bumpy dick. She's like promising him, we're gonna have a boy. Don't worry, we're going to have it. And then basically, after that, after birthing Elizabeth, she has complications just like her first wife. I mean, basically his first wife. She's having stillbirths. Stillbirth, even after, you know, going through the same thing as his first wife. Stillbirth baby, which happens. But a lot of men, they think that it's the woman. Sometimes it is the woman's problem, but then it's also the men. During that time, there's no fertility clinics, there's no fertility doctors. All they know is women produce children, and they know sometimes it's complicated. So basically, she's having complications. His seed is tainted. He's he's like, he's a glutton. He's not really healthy, but he's strong. Okay, he's a strong fat dude. Like, for example, it's some dudes that's fat, and obviously fat men, right? They are intimidating. I mean, currently I'm most well I'm doing it. I'm doing it better than Henry the Eighth, but I'm on some Henry the Eighth shit. Like, I got a dead gut. I'm on a diet currently. Okay, but I'm eating this 2023 American processed food. I'm having a hard time working out. I'm dealing with corporate America and all of its greatness. I'm on some big man type shit. I'm holding, but yeah, I can fight. So Henry VIII, he was kind of sickly, and he also injured his leg during a jousting match. So you got to understand, man, this guy, man, he was a tough dude. He was a warrior king. He wouldn't be, they got two kings: the king that stays in the castle and the men go out to fight, and then you got the warrior king that he goes out to fight with his kingdom. He was the warrior king. He would go out and fight. He was good at fighting. He was trained to fight. He was a trained horseman. He liked to joust in front of all of his peers, and one of the people that he was jousting with, they hit him in his leg. And you got to understand, okay, just imagine, horses go like over 30 miles an hour. Imagine, that speed, okay, with a horse in a freaking big ass pole with a ball on the end of it going towards your freaking thigh. I mean, it must hurt. I mean, they don't have any way to stitch you up and make you feel better. They don't need, they don't know that much about personal therapy or physical therapy and all of that type of stuff. They don't have no Ben Gay to give you. So he also was basically somewhat limp or gimp to a certain extent after that fall from his horse. But he still was nothing to play with. He was very much, you would say, an alpha male. Okay, he didn't play. He could back it up. He could send people to back it up for him. He was, he ruled with the iron fist. Okay, and he also liked to eat. Okay, he's very well documented having big feasts where he eat like four chickens, two chickens, a duck, some lamb, you know, um, a whole pig on the table. You know how they eat, man. Back in the day, they have a whole pig roast on the table, have fruit, wine, all kinds of bread, butter. Okay, um, they pretty much had modern farming down pretty well. They had serfs. They tend to the field. The peasants worked the field. They had a very good system at that time, and they had a lot of food. Okay, they figured out how to grow food. They figured out, this is basically a time where they figured out how to um, maintain vast kingdoms. They traded with each other. They warred with each other still, but it wasn't, as big as it was, before. They found some way to have some stability. Okay, this is only 500 years ago. Okay, 500 to 600 years ago. So basically, yeah, he had a lot of health issues. So that, I believe, most likely led to his issues, as well as whatever health issues that he has with his wife. And you got to understand, if he's infected, if he has sexual transmissions, he's giving them to his wife as well. Okay, you got to understand that's what also it happens. Okay, it was happening. It's happening now with women, it happened then. Okay, sexual transmitted diseases cause you to be infertile to a certain degree if they go untreated. Um, so this time you know, you got to understand, right? The reason why it's called the clap, okay, gonorrhea. The reason why they call it the clap, the medical procedure, if you had the clap back then, a lot of people on the ships, you know, those wooden ships, and they had navies, the old navies and stuff like that, right? They would have a lot of sex, right? Um, and basically the cure for the clap, the only cure they had for the clap was they would basically take something that had two ends over it, and it was most likely wood, and they would take your penis because they knew it was pus in there, and they would basically clap on your penis to get the pus out. That's why they call it the clap, or that's the old term for it, the clap, because that's what they used to do if you had that. And certainly, it was not going away. They would just have to, keep clapping that pus out. So it's very, very, history is, it was very, very rough during those times to survive and live. It was very, very hard. And basically, during that time, this man was dealing with those things. Just because he was the king does not mean that he was above what was going on for the common man and woman during that time of disease, disinfection, basically infections, and also other problems and issues. It was very, very a hard life. You got to understand, if you're alive today, your ancestors had to go through a lot of things for you to be in existence today. I mean, that meant that somebody found a way to stay alive, going back, as far as you can go. It was very, very difficult a long time ago. Okay, even if you go back 200 years, it was very, very difficult. I mean, so you got to imagine, over 600 years, it was very, very difficult with just basically prehistoric almost medical procedures and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of times people, if you had surgery, it's very common that you would die on the basically surgeon's table, because a lot of what the medical procedures or surgical procedures during that time consist of sawing off limbs, cutting off certain things and limbs. It was very like brutal. It was like a butcher shop. So it was very, very difficult during that time to cure people, if they even could, to get people to be somewhat healthy. A lot of times they would have to go to somebody that knew some type of tonic or herbal cure or something like that. And they would probably most likely call these people witches or something like that, because they had some type of, you know, old cure or herb that they knew that would help you and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a lot of things that you could thank the Lord that you were born in this day and time, because it was very, very rough. You could even say probably 100 years from now, people gonna be looking back at today and be like, "Damn, them people had to deal with all of that." Damn, you know. So yeah, Anne Boleyn basically is Catherine of Aragon too. So he's so frustrated, he's so embarrassed, and she basically gets involved with someone else. He finds out, she is executed. You got to understand, um, this man risked his entire crown, his kingdom's future as well, by basically creating what he created, which was the Church of England, so he can basically divorce his first wife, and then ultimately to have the same thing happen. It's embarrassment. It's extreme embarrassment. You got to understand, like, he went through all of this to have the same thing happen. He has a daughter and no sons, and a wife that's giving stillbirth after stillbirth, and he had to do something about it. He had to cover his he had to save face, and he had to cut off her head to save face. Okay, his daughter, she had to go basically in hiding. Elizabeth had to go basically away, um, all while either knowing or not knowing her mother or seeing her mother ever again. She was basically beheaded at the Tower of London. Okay, um, so all of that, that's just that's a strange faith. You thinking, oh, I'm marrying the King of England, and everything is gonna be so good. This is just so good, and then ultimately to basically have a good time for about 3 years, have one daughter, few stillbirths, as well as miscarriages, and then ultimately to be beheaded before everyone, as an absolute embarrassment, as well as to be put to death. It's got to be that. Life was brutal during that time. Okay, so that marriage only lasted about 3 years. Okay, so he moves on. He's already got basically you know um, the 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 green light to basically divorce his first wife. Okay, he moves on to Anne Boleyn. Okay, and now he goes into his second wife. He basically is kind of similar to what would be a Hollywood star today. He has about 6 marriages. Okay, so the third wife is Jane Seymour. Okay, so basically, Jane, I believe Jane, if I'm not correct, is basically she's just a common woman. Um, One of these women actually he married. It's another thing. It's kind of similar to what you hear, on a lot of people are talking about as far as turning a hoe into a housewife. Well, one of the most famous persons that actually did that was King Henry VIII. One of his wives, I believe this is the woman, that basically she actually was he found her in a brothel. Okay, he found her in a brothel, or one of his wives. Okay, I'm not sure if this is her, but he found one of his wives in a brothel, married her, and somehow or another, okay, she had a son. Okay, she produced an heir. Okay, she finally produced an heir. She produced basically basically Edward the Fifth. Okay, she produced Edward the Fifth, and uh, I'm not really that abreast on Okay, no, that would be Edward the Sixth. Okay, I did not, I'm not Catholic. My mother was raised Catholic, and my grandmother. Um, but yeah, I am not Catholic. I did not go to Catholic school. I don't know how to speak Latin, and I don't really. I'm not extremely experienced on Roman numerals, so yeah, I struggle with that to a certain degree. But that would be Edward the Sixth is his first heir. So um, let's find out if she uh, was actually a prostitute. Because, see, the thing about this, the reason why I know so much about this guy, Henry the Eighth, is because I watched the whole series, Tudor. Basically, I believe that was what it was called. Um, and it actually goes into kind of more detail, like what actually happened during his reign and the different problems he had, and then what led to the decisions that he made as far as starting the Church of England. Okay. Uh, okay. So I mean, as far as I know, the his third wife, um, I'm not sure if she was, but in the series, that's what they alluded to. One of his wives was a prostitute. I'm not sure which one. But moving along, anyways, basically, I believe this one was. I would say I think Jane Seymour was, because the reason being is Jane Seymour, she basically was only married to him for a year. Okay. She was only married to him for a year. So basically, she was also executed. Okay. I believe yeah, she was also executed. So that's wife number two that basically was executed. Most likely, okay, let's see what the reason why she was executed. Okay, let's see here. No, she wasn't executed. No, she wasn't executed. She died after giving birth. Okay. So no, that I stand corrected. So it might be possibly wife number four. So after birth to King Edward, she succumbed to her illness of producing the heir, which was Edward the Sixth. So she died in childbirth. Okay, that's what it's saying. So that was why they was only married a year. Okay, so let me put up Jane Seymour here so you can get a kind of a picture of what she looked like. Okay, so this is both of them right here. All right. So let's see here. Yep, that's it here. So yeah, this man he has a lot of wives, man. I'm going through them. This is history class. This guy is the grandfather of divorce. Okay, you need to know this guy. You know It'll be a good conversation striker. People will think you're, a freaking PhD historian for knowing who the grandfather of divorce is. Okay. And yeah. So this is his third wife, Jane Seymour. Okay, in the picture. Okay. So moving along. So he was probably, you gotta understand, he's had his son. So everybody gets 4 chickens apiece, in the feast. I mean, they're playing music, they dancing around in circles, they lighting fires. They're just absolutely. Actually, I remember, light bulbs is flashing. Remember, I said earlier that he could sleep with a man's wife. Jane Seymour was married to somebody, and he was so kind of indeed desperate to have an heir. He knew this woman would possibly be someone that could be a possible match for him to get his heir. That's where Jane Seymour came along. Jane Seymour was already with she was with someone, and he basically took her from someone's uh he basically took someone's wife. I mean, that's where Jane Seymour came in. That's what they portrayed in the series. I'm pretty sure it might be some Hollywood stuff, but that's what they played in the series. That she was already pretty much married, and it was like him having um, an insurance plan. All right, so after Jane Seymour, and in the comment section, I stand corrected. If you're a freaking PhD, if you're an actual PhD historian and you want to correct me, you got references and everything like that, I'm very much welcome to that in the comment section. I am coming from this from a perspective of somewhat being a novice, but knowing quite a bit about this. If you are an expert, and once this video ends, definitely correct me in the comment section. And that's that. But moving along, after Jane Seymour and Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon, we got basically Anne of Cleves. Okay. I think this is the one that, let's see here. Okay, I think this is the one. I think this is the one. I think this is the one that basically found in the brothel. So let me see here. I think she was the one. I think so. Cause it kind of has um the kind of hallmarks of it. All right. Okay. Yeah, it's just, yeah. But yeah, I think so. I think this is the one. Um Basically, let's talk about Annie. Uh Anne of Cleves. Okay. Okay. She looks like she's just a common lady or whatever. But yeah, this Anne Cleves. Okay, we're moving along to Anne Cleves. Anne of Cleves. All right. So we moving along to Anne of Cleves. That's the fourth wife. We're on the fourth wife. We almost there. Almost home. Could you imagine being married that many times? Okay, I mean, could you just imagine it? Like that's wild. But I guess you can't. You can't imagine it. I mean, you can't imagine it, man. I mean, yeah, you can't imagine that. That's all I'm gonna say. You just it's wild, you know. But people, yeah, people like to get married, for whatever reason. People like to get married. So I mean, if you're a king, you gotta get married because that's just the hallmark of your kingdom. You're married. You know, that's just that's what that's all about. Okay. So what I do know briefly about Anne of Cleves is it's a lot of mystery to why this marriage was short lived. Uh this marriage didn't result to any children, I don't believe. I don't think that this woman had any children. What basically happened was she is the first of his wives that did not bear any children. The marriage was considered basically annulled, and it wasn't, basically on the grounds of it was non-consummated. Okay, I don't really know what that is about, but basically I guess his way of saying it was not really a marriage, but it's still considered that, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, whatever happened, I think this is the one that he, kind of found. She was, I think, kind of maybe a working girl, possibly. I'm not sure. Again, it was portrayed in the series that he married someone that was basically kind of like basically a prostitute. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But the thing is that she basically died early. She, they said the most likely cause of death was cancer. Again, I've talked about how hard it was to live during those times and actually be healthy, and all of the things that you had to deal with during that time with what you don't have now. So it looks like this woman was just basically a common woman. Now, after that, let's see here. Um, I think I didn't even show what she looked like, but yeah, this is her. Anne of Cleves. That's his fourth wife. Now, after Anne of Cleves, you basically have let's see here. Da, 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 da. After Anne, so many wives, man. It's just crazy. Um, so the fifth wife is Catherine Howard. Okay. So Catherine Howard is the fifth wife. So she's a cousin to Anne Boleyn. Wow. Wow. Okay. So Catherine Howard is the cousin of basically um, Anne Boleyn. Could you imagine that? Okay, your cousin, she got put to death in the Tower of London for all to see. for her transgressions, um, you know, all of the struggle that she had giving him an heir, and ultimately having a daughter that went on to be one of the greatest rulers in English history. Um, Not knowing that, of course, and this is your blood cousin, and you basically all of the people back then, they knew each other. They were in a tight circle, a tight court. Okay, so she put that aside, and she took his basically offer in hand in marriage. Uh, wow, I mean, that is crazy. But again, if the queen, I mean, the king of England, is asking you to marry them, it's not. You really don't have no choice. Okay, it's not like she had probably had a choice. Most likely, right? So I'm thinking that Catherine might have been some. I'm just one of these because I know it was portrayed as a young woman. So this one pretty much um, was a short lived affair as well. Um, basically he he was not married to her that long. Um, it was like, basically he was. You got to understand, during this time he was getting close to death. Uh, you know, he was very sick, very diseased, and the fact that he's still getting married, he just, at that point, he's going through a lot of problems. He's having mental illness as well. He's having issues with that. So he's becoming delusional. You know, um, this is his fifth wife. So yeah, this marriage only lasted for 2 years. Okay, again, um, it was pretty much short lived. And just think about it. You are asked for your hand in marriage. Your cousin is Anne Boleyn, his first wife after his historic divorce to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. And you married this man that is the King of England, Henry VIII, that basically beheaded your cousin. And yeah, I think I'm willing to put $100. Yeah, this is the one. This is actually the one here. This is the one that was kind of like working in a brothel or something like that. Yeah, because if it follows that storyline of the series, this is the one. Yep, I believe so. Um, this is the one here. This is the woman that was like basically the prostitute that he married, or she was just basically a harlot. I'll just say, she was just basically a harlot. He liked her. He fell within her, her spell. She was a siren. Okay, he got hooked. Okay, she was basically what would be common today. It would be called a thought. He fell in love with the hood rat, basically. And she was basically like fucking his homies on the side, you know, men in his court. And then she got caught, and then she was beheaded in the same tower her cousin was beheaded, the Tower of London. And you gotta imagine, man, a lot of people were beheaded there. You gotta imagine there's probably some ghosts there. You probably visit there. You probably can't because it's probably so many ghosts. I don't know. Um, Fortunately for me, hopefully I'll be able to finally, visit the UK because, I'm able to do so now, possibly. So I'll probably be able to see some of these sites. But yeah, she is definitely the one that I would put my money on that was in the series. That was a harlot that was basically, you know, kind of very similar to what's going on with Joel Smith and his wife. He basically tried to turn a hoe into a housewife. She was beheaded. The men that she was with was also beheaded. It was basically embarrassing. So marriage after marriage after marriage to ultimately, lastly, um, he finally got sick and ill, and his last wife is called Catherine Parr. Okay, Catherine Parr. Uh, so that is his wife that basically, um, you know, most likely visited his casket. She probably already knew he was sick and he was going to die. He's probably coughing up blood. You know, very very ill, very sick. You know, she knew that this man is basically heading to the afterlife. Okay. Um, she is, you know, knowing that she's going to be a widow. So let's share. Catherine Parr. Okay. So this is Catherine Parr. Okay. She is the last wife of Henry VIII. Okay. What does this say about her? So basically she's just kind of like a common woman, but she was the Queen of England, but no, she wasn't a common. She was the Queen of England, so she was related. She was related to one of the dukes at the time. Uh, you know, and yeah, here's the thing, right? Um, this man, this man is crazy, right? So no, she didn't ultimately that's not how this is how the story goes. No, that is absolutely not how the story went. So basically, this woman basically did not uh you know she did not fare well as well. uh she didn't bear any children. And again, you got to understand, right? So this woman is the last queen of Henry VIII. She's the last wife. This man is grotesque at this point. I'm just being real. Like, if history is unkind, truth sometimes is unkind. Um, this man is sickly. He's venturing off towards the afterlife. He's got, probably most likely boils, possibly worse than that, warts. He's got a gimp leg that's becoming infected. He's got different multiple, parasites, infections going on. He's being basically eaten alive. He's taking tonics, potions, whatever they can give him at that time. Whatever medical treatments he can get, he's getting it. He's also eating, okay, whatever he wants to, drinking whatever he wants to because he's the king. And he's not well. He can't, probably got to understand, possibly these last two queens or even the last three, he's probably having a hard time getting it up after a while, which is possibly the reason why these women are sleeping with other dudes. Unfortunately, he probably, most likely, it gets even worse than that he can't even get it up. He's so sickly, possibly he can't have sex with his wives. He can't really even enjoy his wife. Thus the reason of the possible historical statement that the marriage from one of his wives, his latter wives, the last two or three, were annulled because he didn't consummate the marriage. So this would explain what possibly went down. He is probably most likely having erectile dysfunction, having problems getting it up and keeping it up. He's dying slowly. He's very, very sickly. So these women, what are they to do? Are they to wait with their, they, most likely have some prime, box. They got, all the royalty behind, they got a waiter, butler. They got, not a waiter, but they got basically a royal guard. They have, basically everyone at their beck and call to cook them a meal anytime they want. They have times for dinner and supper, but if they want something late at night, 3 a.m, all they have to do is basically just yell or scream or tell their messenger or whatever, go fix me something, and then boom. They got all of the royalty, all of the luxury and wealth that they desire, but they're not getting tended to. They're not getting fucked well. So they got this king, but he can't get it up. What are they to do? And then the royal court, they know the king is not getting it up because they can whisper and they spreading gossip and all of this other stuff and hearsay, or they know absolutely what's going on with the king. He's sick. Everybody knows it, and they know he can't get it up. So the queen is wide open. Okay, she's for the taking, but they do know there is a risk. There's a risk that they get caught. It's off with the head for sure. So what do? They risk it for some pussy, and they get the pussy, and they getting the pussy good. They tearing that fucking queen box up, and she's fucking coming like a river. And the king, he has emissaries and different people in his court, spies and everything all around. they got all kinds of people all around, people in the street, people outside of the castle, in the castle, around about, and they can find out who is fucking who. The word fuck they actually say is fornication under consent of the king. So the king the king knows fucking his wife, right? He finds out. Um he goes, somebody just gotta think. If you could find out the T, right, of your queen that is fucking somebody else, and you know about that, the king is a very, very rich man. He can give you some coin, you know, for your secret, okay? Or, he might give you some type of, I don't know, he might kill you because that's embarrassing. That's a secret. He don't want nobody to know. Who knows? But you're a peasant. You have nothing to win, nothing to lose. So you find out and you tell somebody, that possibly wouldn't kill you, that's a lowly man, maybe a count, maybe a baron or something like that. You tell them, hey man, I found the queen. I heard somebody moaning down by the forest by a tree, and then I saw a fucking a horse carriage, with the royal crest on it and shit. And I saw this woman butt naked by the tree, and you find out, and then you confirm it is the queen, and you like your eyes is about to bust out your eyeballs. Then you find out, and then you get that information to somebody. Then it gets back to the king. He verifies it. Off with the head. So she is the last queen of Henry VIII. She fares just like the other two of his wives. So now you have three wives that basically it's off with their head. And you got to understand, this might be, kind of a tradition type of thing where, you got to understand, maybe somebody, I used to watch a lot of First 48 and not First 48, but basically unsolved mysteries. And a lot of white men were often their spouse. And I'm sure they know about the story of Henry VIII. Henry VIII is their, a lot of, basically a champion to a lot of, Anglo-Saxon people, shall I say. They know that history, they probably learned it in Catholic school or something like that. And they are Catholic. And, yeah, it's like basically that's one of the reasons why a lot of times, you could say white women and even others, they're scared to deal with white men because white men tend to kind of carry on that same tradition of often their spouse. They never know when it's gonna come. So yeah, I mean, but the thing is that yeah, I mean, he wasn't the only one that was often, their wife or spouse. He certainly wasn't the only, king that was doing that or have done that. But yeah, three of his wives were executed. Um, and yeah, Catherine Parr, she was the last. And it talks about that she was married. Yep, it says that she was married to Sir Edward Burr. So he might have just been like, okay, hey, Eddie, man, Edward, hey, I got about 100 shekels for your wife. That's more than you probably will ever get in a lifetime. Don't say anything. I just want your woman. I want your wife. Hey, and then Edward basically it was probably more than $1 million at its time, right? At current time. So it was like, the first indecent, it wasn't the first indecent proposal, but it was an indecent proposal that was worth more than $1 million probably at this time. If you, I mean, even the coins, if you can find those coins, they'd probably be worth millions of dollars, right? Um, he offered that to him, and probably maybe even a an upgraded title for him to hand over your wife, and that's what happened. But ultimately, yeah, um, it was all for show, for him to get married. He could probably most likely barely get it up during this time. She had to, she had to get hers, she would, in order for that to work, she would have to be a nun, and most women cannot be no nun and not have no sex, right? To honor their husband. Even if their husband is the king, she took that risk because she cannot be a nun. She was not a nun, and she wanted to have some. So basically, she risked her life. She got caught, and she faced execution. So, that being said, that is basically the sixth wife of Henry VIII. And basically, the story goes is basically, just to put things in a nutshell, to close this out. uh Henry VIII, basically, he died. Okay. He did succumb to his illnesses. He most likely had basically been inflamed from various illnesses that he had. Because that's basically what inflammation is just a bunch of different ailments at the same time. He most likely probably had various problems such as diabetes, high blood pressure, as well as the sexual infections, from dealing with a multitude of women. Basically, having the injury during a jousting match, in different military exploits, during that time. And he was succeeded by his son Edward, basically the sixth. And the thing about poor Edward the sixth, he did not live long. He also succumbed to, I believe, syphilis. And I'm not sure if that has something to do with what was passed on from his, basically his mom. But yes, he died early. I think he died at before he became a teenager. I believe he passed on, and yeah, that was it. After that, um, Edward passed on, so that left no heir, no male heir. So there was some kind of like similar to what a queen bee hive. If you know about the behavior of a queen bee, Queen Elizabeth at the time, she was basically considered a child that was, you got to understand, a child that was a kind of, in the religious text or religious sense of the time, being that the Roman Catholic Church was so dominant and so strong, and they did not honor the Church of England by any means. They considered, Queen Elizabeth, little baby or little child Elizabeth, as basically a bastard child, because she was not supposed to be born. She was not Henry VIII was not supposed to marry Anne Boleyn and have this child and have this marriage and separate from the Roman Catholic Church. So her basically her sister Mary, that was from Catherine of Aragon, she basically did something where it's like basically slowly exiled Mary, and she died, and Elizabeth was the only one left, and basically she was one of the first queen, and also queen, what is called regent. She's basically a queen and also a king at the same time. And you got to understand, going back to black people in Africa and so on and so forth, they learned how to rule from basically the Africans. Okay, Elizabeth was not the first queen to hold a king's title, to be also a queen, but also with king powers, or to be also considered, a queen, absolute. You can call it an absolute queen, where they have the title of a queen, but they also have basically the powers of the absolute power of a king. It was, basically different queens in Africa that also had that title. Going back thousands, as far as plural, in Africa and Egypt. Queen Hatshepsut was one of the oldest known queens that also ruled with absolute power in Egypt. That's where they learned how to rule. Okay, that's why when when you see, if you want to see a lot of the old Egyptian relics, you have to actually go to Britain in their museums to see that, because that's how basically the kingdom of England and Britain, that's how they learn how to rule. They studied the Egyptians, and they took a lot of traditions and added it to their own, and it's no different. So basically, this what happened. Queen Elizabeth took the throne eventually, and she led basically England to basically what will be called, um, I believe that time was called basically a golden age. It was like a golden age, because she ruled for a very, very long time. She did not get married. I'm sure she has some of the same concerns. Will these people follow me? Will they take me serious? Me being a woman, me also being a queen, not having no husband. So she kind of might even been scared of her father's, transgressions. That was absolutely embarrassing. All of the different, wives that he had. So that might have been in the back of her mind. But yeah, this is the culmination of that. Now, in closing, what later happened was you had one of the bloodiest wars um, of history, and it led to, see, all of this, like, history is like, it all connects. It just interconnects. So basically what you have is, you have a Protestant Reformation that resulted from starting the Church of England. So then now you have the Protestants and the Catholics basically fighting each other. Okay. And that led to basically the Protestant Reformation. Okay, they were fighting with the Catholics, and a lot of people lost their lives, like in the millions. And it was basically still going on to this day. Uh, you know, and basically that was started because basically started from Henry VIII. That led to people, wanting to leave Europe and go to America. They found out about America, and the basically that's what the Pilgrims. A lot of the Pilgrims were Protestants, the Quakers, and all of that. Um, so yeah, that's ultimately what happened. It was a very, very bloody war. Basically, Ireland, the entire Europe was fighting. It was Catholic versus Protestant, and a lot of people lost their lives. And again, your mind might be this is all white people. No, Europe had different types of people. It had mixed people like blacks and white, Europeans that are Africans and Europeans that were mixed blood. So you would call them mulattoes. You had dark skinned Africans. You had brown skinned Africans. Um, they were all both fighting this war, as well as Arabs. You had, different, tribes and stuff of people that were in Europe, and they were fighting um, this war, So it was a very, very bloody war. It led to basically the start of the Americas. Protestants, the Protestants coming over to America, bringing that Reformation. Um, that's why a lot of it is not something that didn't start the disagreements and the wars with Ireland and Great Britain. They were already under rule before that time by Great Britain, but it brought out more wars with the Irish and Britain at that time. So yeah, it just was a big bloody war. Look it up. It's like it's up there with like the top 10 most bloodiest wars in history. So it was during the 1600s. And you got to understand during that war, that's why a lot of people it's kind of like they became refugees and they had to go somewhere. So they went to different parts of the world, primarily America. And then they set up their churches in America. Okay. So this is pretty much, this is pretty much history. Um, it's something that you probably won't, they won't go into detail about this, and like unless you go to like an advanced high school or something like that with some very high level education, you won't get this. You would only get this probably if you go to college and you go take like some some deep history class, or like not something that's probably on 100 level. So the thing is that this is very, very important as far as why this country is the way it is, why Europe is the way it is, and even how you're able to so easily are able to get a divorce. So there you go.
The shit's chess, it ain't checkers.